Welcome to We Are All Okay Wednesday. In a world filled with chaos, here we reconnect with our innate emotional and spiritual well-being. Join us as we dive into discussions, reflections, and practices to remind ourselves we are all okay. As Allah tells us, He will never burden us with more than we can bear. Hey, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wa salat wa salam ala Rasulullah. Welcome to We Are All Okay Wednesday. I'm Catherine Jones, the CEO and founder of the Back to the Fitrah Mentoring Academy. And today's topic is breaking the cycle of exhaustion to become re-energized, inshallah. So the interesting thing with exhaustion is that even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala differentiates between the sort of exhaustion and fatigue that we feel physically, which is something that we're not so worried about because we know we've exerted ourselves. We know that we have done something that has left us, needing some rest, sleep, whatever it is. And that there is also another type of exhaustion, which is that of the mind. And that is what we're talking about today. And that exhaustion or weariness, as it says here, of the mind leads to a feeling of physical exhaustion, even though it's not coming from a physical source. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse, Allah, what means, He who has settled us in the home of duration out of His bounty, there touches us not in it. I should have got a different translation. I didn't even read this fully. Sometimes they translate things literally rather than in a form of English that makes more sense. But there touches us not in it any fatigue, and there touches us not in it weariness of mind. So the question was asked, and this is where I got this verse from, why is fatigue mentioned twice in this verse? And so the explanation was that they're two different Arabic words referring to different things. And so we're really talking about the latter one, the weariness of the mind that can tend to lead to that fatigue of the body. So I'd like for you to reflect for a moment about, what is the exhaustion story that you have going on? Now, why do I call it an exhaustion story? Is because I came to realize that I had many exhaustion stories, and that those stories, as they circulated in my mind and sometimes on repeat, that I was feeling exhausted. I was feeling not like doing anything, feeling like it was all too hard, feeling quite frustrated and resentful towards everybody because I felt like, well, surely they know I'm tired and they should be helping me. Feeling frustrated because I wasn't able to achieve what I wanted to achieve. So many layers of really dampening, heavy, dark stories that led to this almost feeling of paralysis, that it was heavy to get up in the morning. It was heavy to trudge through the day. And it really felt like something needed to change in order for me to be okay. Well, the beautiful thing is there is always hope, and I'm living proof of that. And I'm going to share with you more living proof of that later on as well, inshallah, that with a shift in thinking, we can actually rise above that feeling to a place of feeling energetic again. Alhamdulillah. So a good question to ask ourselves when we're stuck in that is, how can we view it differently? Because it's the way we're looking at it that is creating that heaviness, that is leading to that feeling or that sense of exhaustion. And a theme at Back to the Fitrah is this verse, verily in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. That lighter feeling comes back when we notice how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there for us. And that heaviness that's leading to exhaustion is coming from a space where we're not noticing that. Now, I'm not saying that we've forgotten Allah completely. I'm not saying this as a blanket statement that we don't have faith or we don't believe in Allah. We're not thinking about Allah. I'm saying that in this specific area of, or this particular issue, we have stopped noticing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there for us. And so we're lacking the remembrance of Allah in that specific place. And overall, that is then leading to the tired, exhausted experience that we're having. So how can we view it differently from a perspective of Allah being there for us? So I'm going to unpack a little bit of some of this type of thinking so we can get an idea of what the thinking is and maybe even challenge it a little bit to start seeing it differently. Because we're always experiencing thought in the moment. Our experience is always, our feelings are always coming from the way we are thinking about it. So one type of thinking that leads to that feeling, that really heavy feeling, is what I have defined as defeated thinking. And defeated thinking tends to come from us having blanket statements in our mind, blanket beliefs perhaps in our mind about ourselves or others or our situation. So it's all about never or always. There's no exception in the way we're seeing it. The reality is, if we actually looked at it objectively, we would see that there are exceptions. But because we're not seeing the exceptions, we've made it a rule. So never, statements like, I'm never going to get this done, feeling defeated by a responsibility or a task or whatever. I'm never going to get the support I need. So maybe being in a family environment where you feel taken for granted and feel like all of the responsibility is on your shoulders and nobody is being supportive. I never have enough time for myself. Now, this is a really important one because it's important to have time for ourselves. But to have this belief that I never have time for myself and not noticing when we actually do and taking advantage of it can very much lead to a lot of resentment from the people around us, especially resentment of, surely they can see I need a break, or surely they see I need time for myself. Why is it that nobody is lifting a finger to help me? A lot of really difficult thinking going on there, and I need a break, or I need a I never get a break, or I never get a holiday, and these things leading to I need this in order to be okay. These are traps, because while there are certain needs that we do have, like we do need to get enough sleep, and we do need to eat properly, and we do need to drink enough water, and we do need to have time out for our mind to just relax. But to get focused on it to the point where we're fixated on this lacking a specific need can lead us, into quite defeated thinking, because it appears like someone needs to rescue us or someone needs to step in and make this right. And then the flip side, there's always too much to do. There's always making the same mistake. So there's no compassion or forgiveness in there. Always find myself yelling at the kids. I get this one so much from parents, and feeling quite defeated because not seeing a way out at all. Another type of thinking is just overthinking. And no, and I don't think we really appreciate how much energy it takes to think. But having beliefs that I have to figure out the answer, that I have to fix their relationships. I work with a lot of people who are, fixated on, well, if I don't fix the relationship between my husband and my son, then nothing's going to be peaceful at home anymore unless I fix this relationship. And so they're caught in the middle, and constantly thinking, should I say this? Should I do this? Should I do that? And then having to make people happy, which of course, one of the things we teach at Back to the Fitrah is we don't make people happy. They are happy because they have happy thoughts. So when you're caught up in the idea that you have to make someone happy and they're not happy, and you're just racking your brain constantly trying to figure out how to make them happy and they're never happy, that leads to a lot of overthinking. It can also lead to that defeated thinking I was talking about before. And a lot of overthinking about, I need to know. Like, I need to know what I have to do next. I need to know what they're going to do. What is the plan? I need to know everything in order for me to make a good decision. Everything spinning around in our head, trying to control everything, even if we're not a controlling person, although in some ways we all slip into that at times, because control comes from insecurity. Can you see how there's a lot of insecurity in this overthinking? So that insecurity leads to controlling. So we're just trying to get everything to be in order so that we can stop thinking about it. Because if we don't keep thinking about it, it's not going to work out. It's that kind of craziness going on. And so getting caught up in the why, the what, the how, the when, constantly spinning around in our head all these questions, thinking we have to know the answers in order for us to be okay. So I want to share with you just a few snippets from an interview I did with Sarah, who at one point she was very defeated and totally exhausted, and just hear how she talks about some of the things in the transformation she's experienced, going from that state into a state of being more energetic and excited about life.
I mean, we have such a need to control things, and we think that if we just try to preempt and think about every possible case scenario, and if we plan enough, and if we, think ahead and we make the lists and we, do all this kind of thing, that somehow everything's going to work out. But I mean, subhanAllah, we talk a lot about tawakkul, right? About relying on Allah, and we talk about it as a concept. But in practice, I found it really hard to actually have that tawakkul, because when you think that you're in control and you're trying to, manage everything through your thoughts and all of this, you're not really relying on Allah. And so it was scary to just let go of that. But alhamdulillah, Allah kind of put me in a situation here and a situation there, slowly. And once you experience it, and you see how actually, first of all, it's so much easier because you just trust Allah and leave it to Him, and you make dua, but there's not something that you have to do, so it's easier. But it's just so much lighter because, yeah, there's no thinking involved. You're just submitting and relying on Him to guide you. And it's just so many stories, because it's a story, right? Like, or children are tiring, or many children are tiring, or young children are tiring, or even now, like we're in Ramadan, subhanAllah, Ramadan is tiring. We're not sleeping, we're not eating, but subhanAllah, it doesn't have to be. Like, and a couple of years ago, I couldn't imagine feeling like this. It's like, alhamdulillah, like waking up and after only having sometimes an hour or 2 or 3 or however many hours of sleep, and yet still feeling excited, to get up and pray, to go outside, to be with the kids, to read the book, whatever it is.
So there's a lot of interesting points that Sarah's making there. And the key one is the importance of tawakkul. And that is the remembrance of Allah that is required here to get us out of the overthinking, get us out of the defeated thinking, is to come into a state of tawakkul, of knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one in control, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has the ultimate plan, and no matter how much we plan, his plan is the one that will prevail. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything, and he knows what everybody needs. And so he is the one who knows best, not us. But the most important one is trusting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding each and every one of us, and that we can rely upon him and his guidance in every given situation, which means we don't need to know everything in order to be okay. We just need to trust in him and follow how he is guiding us, subhanallah. So it comes back to this verse, and I repeat this constantly because I feel like these words are the solution to all mental ailments that we suffer. Because look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here. And whoever is conscious of Allah. So let's just unpack that. Conscious of Allah means we're remembering Allah. Conscious means Allah's on our mind. So we're fulfilling our obligations to Allah, of course, with our prayer, dhikr, dua, all these things that we do on a daily basis. But we're also remembering Allah when it comes to, is what I'm about to do pleasing to Allah or not? And in terms of participating in what is halal and avoiding what is haram. And so this is the recipe. This is what Allah is saying. He's saying, be conscious of me, and then he will make a way out for from every difficulty, right? It doesn't say that every difficulty there, but that's the meaning of it. So Allah is the one that's going to find our way out of everything that might be going on, and will provide from where we do not expect. In other words, just because in our mind we can't see the solution, or we can't see the way in which the provision can come, doesn't mean it's not going to come, because Allah can provide from places that we don't expect. And so that takes the thinking off our mind. Can you see how the thinking is now coming off our mind? Because we don't need to figure out the answer. And we don't even need to know what it is. And that leads to the next part, which is, and whoever relies upon Allah, whoever has tawakkul, meaning, okay, I believe that's true and I completely submit to it. So it's not that I intellectually know that, I actually feel that. Then Allah is sufficient for him, meaning we don't need anything else. SubhanAllah. And this is the way to think about it differently. Remember, I asked the question earlier, how can I think about it differently? This is the solution to thinking about it differently. How can I think about it through this lens, rather than the lens I've been thinking about it through, that has led to this exhausting, tiring existence? SubhanAllah. So I want to share a couple of examples here. And these are two sisters who have been from a state of exhaustion into a state of feeling re-energized in life. And these are their words. So Ines has said, I didn't realize how much my thinking and beliefs about people and events were weighing me down. It was sort of like a program running in the background. With the help of Back to the Fitrah, I was able to finally identify them and let them go. I became free of what was weighing me down mentally and physically. After being utterly exhausted, burnt out, and fatigued, I've gradually returned to feeling energized again. I feel that I got myself back to my Fitrah. Alhamdulillah. And Heather, now both of these are graduates of our certification program, by the way. So they have been with us, through all of our programs and really come to understand this and are now themselves sharing it with others in one way or another. So Heather said, for years, I believed that my exhaustion was preventing me from being able to appreciate life. I lived in survival mode, believing that until I could get more sleep, there was nothing I could do. Now, Heather has children that don't seem to need much sleep, and so she was getting no time out at all. She was up extremely early, and her kids wouldn't sleep until extremely late, and they wouldn't have naps during the day, and so she had no time out whatsoever. I knew that when I didn't worry about my lack of sleep, I had more energy, but I couldn't stop myself until Back to the Fitrah changed all of that, alhamdulillah. Learning about the power of thought led to my mind automatically becoming quieter, which meant I dropped the focus on my tiredness without effort, alhamdulillah. I didn't need to change my thoughts, analyze them, or try to force myself to be positive. It becomes my innate state of being rather than something I have to work at. So now, despite still being sleep deprived, I enjoy my life. I live in the moment and appreciate my blessings, alhamdulillah. So this is what Heather shared. And I have witnessed, because I've been with both of them through the whole journey, I have witnessed the amazing shifts in both of them. You can just see it in their face that there's this bright nur light on their faces that were struggling to be there before because they were just so tired, subhanallah. So I want to leave you with some final thoughts. The first thing is that feeling re-energized can be just one thought away. And that thought is when you remember Allah, especially through those verses in Surah Taqwa, not Surah Taqwa, Surah Talaq. I got Surah Talaq, verses 2 and 3. When you start thinking about whatever it is through that lens, that thought can shift almost instantly the way you're feeling. And of course, you need sleep and self-care too. I am not suggesting for a second that we don't also need to look after ourselves and have sleep, proper sleep. It's about understanding that there are two types of exhaustion. The one which is the physical that comes from lack of sleep, overexertion, those sorts of things. And then there's the one that comes from the overthinking. So if you are someone who is stuck in some defeated thinking or overthinking that is leading you to feel exhausted, make dua to Allah for the clarity and insight that you need, for that shift in thinking that's going to relieve you. Keep joining us and learning more so that you can have an anxiety-free life. No, why does it say anxiety-free? It's supposed to say exhaustion-free. We're talking about exhaustion, not anxiety. SubhanAllah. And then the next steps that you can take if you want to get out of the trap of exhaustion and live a life that you're excited about is watch the video that we have from Exhausted to Excited, where I'm talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to in that video. Oh, yeah, it was Maysara, because that was a clip of it that I showed you earlier. And if you would like to talk to us more about what's going on, book in a We Are All Okay coaching session with us and start your journey to an exhaustion-free life. You'll find the link, with this video, inshallah. So Jazakallah khair for being with me for We Are All Okay Wednesday today. Inshallah, I will be back again with the letter F next time. Thank you for joining me for another empowering We Are All Okay Wednesday. I hope you found today's discussion uplifting and insightful. Remember, your well-being matters, and you are never alone on this journey. For more resources and support, visit weareallok.com, spelt WERALLOK.com. Until next time, may the peace, love, and blessings of Allah be with you. And Nash, that must have been interesting being one of the people in the examples and being here.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, I popped on and I didn't realize that it was going to be that, but it was really insightful listening to that and realizing how it was that defeated thinking. Because I had a lot of defeated thinking and despair in my life, and thinking things won't change or can't change. And subhanallah, things have shifted and changed, and that I thought would be impossible. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, I'm very grateful. And yeah, I do feel more energized and motivated now to do things. So there was something that I didn't mention in my paragraph was that I was actually diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I was bedridden for a couple of years, housebound for about 3 years. If I tried going or doing something, it just knocked me right back again. And so it's been a gradual recovery. Alhamdulillah, some people believe they can never recover from this, but alhamdulillah, I feel now, I think, just last week, I think I was saying to you, I feel that now I'm out of the woods, alhamdulillah. And I feel more normal again and back to myself again and back to my Fitrah of just being spontaneous, and yeah, alhamdulillah.